So, should we begin?
Yes.
Maybe I should say a few words about what you're doing, actually. So, you're making... Naomi, when did we meet? When did you come to London? 2019?
2019, yeah.
Wow, oh my God.
Yeah.
So, Naomi come to London to study a little bit with me the thinking method in 2019, and there's a few of them there in Israel, Palestine, to say it. You can't say like a forward slash, can you? Israel/Palestine. Making Hebrew and Arabic courses, and I'm here to offer guidance and discuss their difficulties and ponder over this stuff, and hopefully it will be useful for people trying their hand at course writing. So, there we are. All right, so where do we begin, guys? I'm going to let you guys direct me.
Okay, so first of all, I think it's good for us to know we have 1 hour, or how much time do we have so we know how much...
Oh, however long you need.
Okay. Because we have a lot to talk about, but we also want to understand the framework. So maybe we can start from giving some background about what we did until now and where we're standing at that moment. So maybe you want me to say? Or what we've been working about. Okay, so
you can start
after we've met, hundreds of years ago, I don't know, 2019. So we started writing the course, Arabic for Hebrew speakers. And then we also started a project in the West Bank where we combined with our course, what we tried to do with the immersive staying for the students and also protective presence, but they lived in villages in the West Bank where they were exposed to Arabic. And then we kept on rewriting it for I think 2 years, and we did some we had a few courses, a few rounds with different students, and we had some really good reactions from our students, and it was really, really nice. And we kept on also expanding our panorama and understanding better the different tense, aspect, moods in Arabic, also in Hebrew, and to understand what are the more we taught and dove more into the language, we understood that we need to understand more.
Yeah.
That Arabic actually, Palestinian Arabic, is not.
This is the definition of rabbit hole, going down rabbit holes, isn't it?
Yeah.
You're oh, I understand the present tense, and then you're you lift up the carpet and look underneath.
Yeah. And also that there is not a sufficient descriptive a grammar book for Arabic, for Palestinian Arabic, and the whole thing with dialects started to be an issue because TAM changes between dialects, and we started to have more and more questions, but at the end we decided that we do want to create an introduction for Arabic and to record it. Try to give for the students that go to these courses in the West Bank to listen to the recorded version and to see what is the...
I think what I'm doing with the Japanese at the moment is a really good way to do that, because then you don't have pressure. Because, you've realised now after all these years how much you just want to keep raising the bar of the experience every time you run through it, and you're more aware of the thoughts that the student needs to have to reproduce the language, rather than being so focused on the language and all of that stuff. So a good idea is to release it in tester format so it can be shared. And also it's really cool because videos on YouTube make their way around more maybe than audios, right? And then when there's no pressure, because anyone can learn, anyone can go and use that material and learn, and they can, they can repeat the classes, and they get different classes because you're uploading different classes every time you repeat it or you update it a little bit. And then at some point you can decide to make your professional polished audios.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, actually it's really, I liked also the Japanese, I read also the comments and the reactions, and it's interesting. Yeah. And right now, we recorded 27 tracks. And now we know that we want to rewrite. we also want to continue, but also before we can continue, we want to rewrite again. And then we have question about writing, and we have question about linguistics materials that we felt that we reached like dead ends of like how to explain it.
Let's get to it. I'm so pumped. I just love solving these problems.
Yeah, so maybe we can just do we can give you like an outline of our course, like what we did, and reasons why we chose. Because, for example, at the beginning we started with
the possession sounds and that.
Yeah, but and before that the active participles, and then this active participle led us into a dead end, and then also for other reasons, like positive reasons, we decided to start from the imperfective, from the suffixes and the imperfective. But maybe you want to give like a short, like an outline of the course, one of you. Maybe I will turn on the light here now. Because we changed to wind.
So the outline.
I have to say, guys, just seeing like Mediterranean light on your skin is like making me so nostalgic. I'm in England, man. Sorry.
When you say Mediterranean light, you just mean light.
Like I can smell the air, just like now that you turn the light on, I can't, right? But just before the reflection, I can smell the air there, and I'm like, it's damp here, man. Anyway, sorry.
There's like an outline that is more like skinny, but has every track, like what is being there, but it doesn't really have the rationale or like the connections between it. It's more like, looks like a linguistic, more like morphology, phonology.
Yeah, I know what you mean. People do that on my YouTube comments all the time. I don't know why.
What do they do?
Like they will come to the track and they will do that about it. And it's
interesting, because we also got
firstly, loads of people have done that already. Check the comments. Secondly, it's not how this works, but never mind. But no, I mean, it's good for me to look at in your case because, of course, I can see it and think about, what you're connecting. But
it's interesting to say that because we got several feedbacks that it will be helpful for students. Like students said, it would be helpful for them to know, to have like a title for the track.
Right. So I get that all the time, and that's something like I've stubbornly resisted. So learners will all the time say, "Oh, this is amazing, this is perfect, but it would be better if you did this." And it's like, what do you know? Like, do you think you know how you learn? Well, that is the case, right? So like people say, it would be so much better if I could read it. And it's like, it wouldn't, because your mind would start working visually. The mind is lazy. So I need to get your mind to do what it does to talk, right? Which is not the same. Like, so when it comes to like the track descriptions, learners want it to be more horizontal so they can go back to it for reference. But that's not how this works. It's all woven, so it's kind of pointless to do that. So what I do is I provide the transcript and I say, you can use the search tool and search for like, I don't know, subjunctive tense, right? And then you will see how that's built over lessons 3 to 4, 7 to 9, 15, 20 to 22, because that's the way it's woven. So you're gonna, from the beginning, get used to resisting these things because they go against what you're doing. I mean, if you're writing with a thinking method properly, you're weaving so much that it is senseless to give anybody. So when they ask for it also, you need to get them into that mentality, which is think about the thoughts you need to have. Like, okay, what is it that you tried to remember? What you feel like you need to look at a piece of paper to remember? Let's find it together. Rely on your thoughts. Rely on your thoughts.
Yeah. So we're basically basing the course on the imperfective form, like the mudare.
Like when you say like raya.
No, so this week.
Like baroh.
So aruh without the like the mudare. Yeah. So we call it the imperfective.
So do you mean the stem like roh is what you work with?
So aruh.
It changes for person. From aruh, ruh, nruh.
Yeah. So what you're working with is roh then.
So we're not dividing it. We're working with the person, with the affixes.
With the first person.
With the prefixes without the ba, without the what is the word?
The auxiliaries.
The auxiliaries.
Yeah. Maybe we'll give the outline, and then we also say, like, I don't know how much you know about Hebrew, but of course you can assume.
I'm just assuming it's like Arabic, like French and English or something like that.
So it's even more, I think, but we will talk about it because this is one of the things that is like complicated for us. That it's like in terms of form versus meaning, it has like so many different things. So this is where like
that's where stuff gets interesting because you have to weave it together wisely for it not to be confusing. That's the exciting stuff.
Framing is like I think that in terms of writing, like we feel that like weaving, reframing, and also from that like cueing and like correctly. This is where we feel that we need to. This is what we need to improve to make it better. But we will will get like some kind of a picture so you can understand better like what we do because we sent you like only a few tracks.
Yeah.
So maybe give like the.
Okay, so so this is the imperfective, what we call it. So it's aruh, and we're basing like the tracks are focused on like this is like the main road we call it of the tracks, with teaching like the different functions of imperfective, what it can do, and also all the inflections, like all the person. Message or like the Google Doc we sent you with the.
Oh yeah, I have that open now.
Translation, we'll just like copy it there.
What animal am I on the Google Doc today?
You're a llama.
Oh, it's good to know. I did actually want to know that.
Okay, so what you see here is the what is it? The first page is just like the story of the course, and then there are tracks where you see like words and then sentences, and then like a really short summary.
Is it a summary? Like to refer to.
So
very short summary of what cues that are helpful.
Let's try to focus on some specific problem because I have a feeling that the rest it will all just come in once we start talking about something specific. So is there something that's like really concrete, that's like a one of these brick walls you can name?
Yes.
Which one are you thinking about? Active participle or something else?
I mean, we can maybe start with the mudare.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Any? Okay. So let's start with the imperfective, which is called like in Arabic it's mudare. That's the name of the form. Maybe you read that in some grammar books. The thing with this form is that we have a cognate or like an identical form in Hebrew, but the function is different. In Hebrew, it's the future tense, and in Arabic, it's the infinitive, like kind of. So it is. We need to talk about it as if we want to use the similarity to Hebrew, and we want to because this is the way they import all the inflections. Like it's very easy for Hebrew speakers to inflect the imperfective because it's exactly the same.
But it means something else.
But it means something else. So
give me the form in Arabic.
So yaktub.
Okay.
So yaktub
the imperfect, I think, but not that I'm great at these terms, but
perfect, exactly.
Imperfect, yeah.
So yaktub in Arabic, and in Hebrew we have yichtov. But yichtov is future, while yaktub is, as you know, imperfect and is not future. Yaktov, if we're talking about the imperfect or like it's kind of an infinitive. It just has a person on it, but it's kind of an infinitive.
Yeah.
In Hebrew, it will be lichtov.
And lichtov in Hebrew does also mean he.
No, it's without. It's closer to infinitive. It doesn't have
like
a person.
English.
Right.
It's like even the li, which is two, and then it's just like one form.
Right.
And it's always like lichtov, likol, linshom, lamut. Like it's always.
Okay. Yeah. So what most Arabic courses, like teachers will say to students, they will say like in Arabic there is no infinitive, like you, because when a student asks, how do you say lichtov in Arabic? They will say, they don't have it. What we're trying to do is by like raising the awareness to form versus meaning, helping students to take what they need from Hebrew, but still understand that it doesn't mean that the meaning is the same. So they will take the inflections from Hebrew, from the future tense, but it doesn't mean that it is future in Arabic.
Yeah. And what are those inflections, the future ones?
So like yaktob, taktob, yaktobu.
Right. And in Palestinian, do they have like the B that you'd have in Egyptian for like biyaktub?
Yes. Yes.
Right. So actually, you never really say yaktub unless you've got something else joining to it.
Before.
Right.
You say biddo yaktob.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is kind of similar to Greek, right? So there's not like a fixed way you should do this, right? It depends on everything else it ties into and the bigger picture that we could never probably describe in this moment, right? But it's not that there's no infinitive, of course. It's just that it's done in a different way. So you don't think of the language in terms of infinitive, right?
So I think that what we faced, like, okay, we said we want to start from what is very familiar for Hebrew speakers and to like raise the awareness for Hebrew speakers about like these little endings that add information. And then from there, like we wanted to take them to biddi, which is like I want, and then we said like, okay, we will actually teach them how to say things like how to construct, like I want to do something, I want like this, I want like that. And we thought that it will be much more intuitive for students. And we felt, and this is I think where we know that we missed maybe places in maybe the reframing or the weaving or the cue, because we feel that when we give them like the support, they can reach what we want. But
it's not, it doesn't come organically. They don't have those, right. Okay, I know what you mean.
This is something that we felt very like different.
Like you need to be there doing each step for them.
Exactly.
Yes.
Right. So what that means is that we're too focused on the language rather than on the thoughts that need to happen to produce it. So there's all these work we can do before where all of that is now part of me in Arabic or me in Hebrew, whatever language I'm learning, right? All of those thoughts beforehand. So I have a question. In Hebrew generally, like, do people have this consciousness of the root system? Like your average Israeli, do they have the consciousness of the root system?
Root system, yes.
The root system,
yeah. But there were like when we asked them, how would you say he in the future? Like they get confused. נגיד כאילו הוא בעתיד.
Sorry, I mean just generally like the idea of roots, like having a root like Solomon that goes into different words and that it's interesting and where we get our words from. Is there this general consciousness there about that or not so much?
I think about roots, yes, but I will say that for other things that we like also saw in your courses that are very intuitive, like even on a consonant, vowel, stress, these things, not at all. Like
so the reason I asked is because if you're having these confusions, because you said like about increasing the consciousness, whether they know or not already is just the detail about how you go about it and how you talk about it, right? But still, I think it might make sense to begin that consciousness around the root system, and then things like the li that you have in Hebrew, you understand much more intuitively that it's not part of the verb.
The what that you have in Hebrew?
Was it li?
Le.
Was it?
Yeah.
So yeah, maybe if we're starting with increasing consciousness, maybe it would be interesting to actually, rather than, Bertu and all of this stuff, looking at roots, and there will be certain patterns with the roots, right? So in the same way, like you have like Solomon and then Shalom in Hebrew, like I'm sure you'll be able to find certain patterns like that, like in the same way that I have like vocabulary patterns between Spanish and English, for example. And then you can get people to say, what would these roots be in Arabic? And then the sentence building you're doing in that time can be quite opportunistic because you don't know what things are going to come out once you look at the patterns. So also don't be so tied in. Remember, you can speckle things here and there if they serve one of your purposes. And we're usually working with 5 different purposes at once, maybe like increasing some consciousness here about pronunciation, something here about grammar, and something here about whatever. So you can see what arises when you have patterns, when you're working with root consonant patterns, like thinking in terms of what is the beginning of the course. Because like I noticed that you've got a lot of like, my sister, his sister, da 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 da. And then at the end there we've got where is Amir's sister's house. Now, for track 2, for example, on track 2, is that the order? That's the right order that all of this stuff comes in on the track, right? So even within this track, I see like loads of potential for weaving now, where the where could come earlier, and people feel like they're saying something earlier.
Yeah.
And then the things that are being possessed there, like bet, they could actually be things that relate to the root system. And you can find words that are the same in Hebrew and go, and how would you say, where is the lamp, or whatever it is? Some word that they can figure out by themselves. So the consciousness you begin raising at the beginning is the root, and that's really good to help differentiate between what is the core of the word and what are the bits that we add on, rather than beginning focusing on the bits we add on. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something similar I'm doing in the Japanese at the moment. Like, of course, it's Japanese, so I'm not like starting like with Spanish, like metal, metal, normal, normal. No, but there is an opportunity at some point because Japanese adopts so many English words with things that it imports culturally, because Japanese is quite liberal in that it will let anything in, but it's conservative in the fact that it wants to like make sure everyone knows it's not Japanese. So like glass in a window is not Japanese. Like Japanese had paper in their window. So a glass in a window is garasu, comes from glass. And a door, like a front door of your house, rather than like a sliding door, is a door. Like it comes in from English. So you get to the point where, you can your focus is on verbs or on nuance or whatever, and then you say, how would you say I'm going to the pool, honey? And then people in that moment go, oh, pool. Oh, okay. I guess that's something I can say in Japanese. Puru, gym. Let's go to the gym. Jimu ni ikimashou. So you can do something similar when you've got them to identify root patterns, and then you just have to find words that just knowing the root follows that pattern, that will get the same noun in the other language. Have I explained that well?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm thinking of other words.
Oh, okay. So, like, to give you like, just an example that comes to me now, because it's a nice short word, like dars, which means course. Now, imagine, what are the roots for course in Hebrew?
For course?
Yeah, like dars, madrasa.
We have the same root in Hebrew. It's just okay. So midrasha is the school for like religious girls.
Darasha then is the root.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a lucky one. So that's just like salam shalom.
Yeah.
No, dorosho. Now, do you also have the word darsh as a course or not?
Drasha. We have drasha.
Drasha. So depending on how similar. Depending on what you find, the ideal would be finding examples where you have something like darsh, right?
Yeah.
And they can get there themselves. If those exist. And, AI is the stupidest thing in the world, but something it's useful for is this. If you want to help it find words, like now I can say, give me loan words in Japanese that are places. And then I get more, Paul, la 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 la, and I don't have to like think it myself, right? So that's I don't advise using AI for next to anything, but that's one thing it can be used for, to help you find word pairs like that. And then if you don't find exact pairs like darsh, which of course doesn't exist, then maybe you start finding patterns about how you get from darsh to darush or whatever it was. What was it? Drasha. You just jazz up these lessons, right? Getting them to say then, instead of like house, right? Where is the course? Where is my sister's course? Words that you can use in the structures. And then what are you doing mentally beyond the sentences that, they're called sentences, but that's not the point. The point is you're already getting that person to stop the thought that is, I don't know that. which is the most important thing. Because when your student says, I don't know that, it's game over. So if right from the beginning, you're getting them to say, do I know that? Let's have a search. Because you've just started and you've got them to go, solama, shalama, dorosa, dorosha. And then you find that pattern, then you go, all right, so what might this word be? Well, and now, and you weave that in with what you've got already. What you're achieving in the same amount of times, if you're focused on like their mental experience, you're achieving a lot more. And then the more you do that, all of these problems that are problems become less of a problem, if it makes sense. So the stuff we were talking about before with the Lee and the whatever, because you're beyond the sentences, you're already doing so much more mental work earlier. So when you're on track 10 now, you've got a different mind than if you were just doing like...
What happens to us is that the track 10 or 11, suddenly the students need to have a lot of mental thinking and they're not used to it. It's surprising because they didn't need to do it in the first 10 tracks.
Right. So that's what I call artificial friction, right? So I make this description in the book that if you make everything too, and I said it in my Japanese thingy yesterday, and I actually left it in the edit, where if I make everything too easy, no one will think about anything. And also, you've got to be careful not to have people repeating mindlessly. So one of the key points of the 10 things we do in the thinking method is we mask repetition. So the repetition is masked in this way. At the same time, I'm hunting for nouns I can find switching roots. I don't realize I'm repeating some point or structure, because the moment people realize, their brains go off. No? So this is always, it's an artistic endeavor as well. It's like you don't want somebody to switch off during a comedy stand-up or during a series or whatever, right? You want to have them engaged the whole way. So it's also about the contours. No, it's funny, I've mentioned all the points minus the ones you mentioned of the 10 things we do, right? So that might be telling. Now there's all these other elements there you need to think about, the contours of tension, when we relax, when we go, oh, that's interesting, and then when we come back into concentration, all of that, right? Because what we're doing here is not just it does work, look at all these things we can get you to say. No, I need to change your brain. I need to change your brain because I need you to grab an idea that would come to you in Arabic or Hebrew, identify the elements of the idea, think about which part is going to come first, and do that on the go to speak. It's a big thing. So that's our focus in course writing, right? How am I doing that at the same time that I'm presenting my way through the grammar? So the order of what's going on mentally is so much more important than the order of the way we put the language together. We put the language together in a certain order in order to allow us to build that new mind, right?
I want to ask about this specifically, with the imperfect. So at the end, the student has to do the process of knowing that we have the same form, that he needs to go to future in Hebrew and take things from this form and take it to Arabic, and then knowing that it's not me, it doesn't mean future, I want to use it in this new way of Arabic. And he needs to do all of these, and it feels like, how can you lay the foundation to these?
So basically, a lot of the time, it's just the way you word. So in Arabic, those sounds, those are the personal sounds that count for all the tenses, right? Like whether I say بتكلم, هتكلم, كلمت, it's the same t.
What?
You mean in the past and in the...
So as far as I understood it, you have a ta that you would take from Hebrew, which means the future, and then pull it into Arabic where it doesn't mean the future. But in Arabic, it means everything. So there's actually less confusion there. No, because it's not just that T that you use. You're not going to use it just for the present. You're going to use it also for the future. You're going to use it also for the past. You just put it somewhere else. The same with the na. No, like I can say nakalim or kalimna. No, or hankalim in Egyptian. I don't think you have the ha for the future, or do you in Palestine?
Yeah.
So actually, you just go, the sounds you will use in Arabic are the same. Or you know what? You can even just not make reference to it. You don't really need, it's not hard to remember those sounds. But hold on, let me understand a little bit more about the panorama in Hebrew too, because maybe I'm not understanding why this is difficult. So in Hebrew, you have these sounds for the future. What do you do in the present in Hebrew?
So for the present in Hebrew, we use the active participle, which is like what you do in Arabic.
Raya.
Raya, yes, exactly.
You use that always in Hebrew?
Yes.
For present.
Right.
the form in Hebrew is for the active, like for this can be like the verb for the present. It can be a noun, and it also can be an adjective.
And the past in Hebrew?
It's almost the same as in Arabic, except that like there are some...
Right, so I feel like the biggest emphasis that you need to put actually is on how you do the present, and then everything else is going to fall into place. So the biggest emphasis is like, look, in Hebrew, I mean, if you're going from Hebrew to Arabic, right? In Hebrew, we use these participles for everything, don't we? Look what we did in Hebrew. This can only happen in some situations in Arabic. Otherwise, we have the present. All those sounds, you're going to learn them in the present, and then the sounds are applicable for everything else. So, I think you have two ways to go here. You can go, these sounds are the same, I want to take advantage of that, or you can go, which means putting those things together, or you go, these sounds are the same, I want to generate distance so that there's no confusion. No. So if you want to generate distance, then your focus is on how in Hebrew you use the rayeh, whatever, safir, misafir, whatever it is. But you can only sometimes do that in Arabic, and then you learn the present, and then the present in Arabic also gives you your infinitive, so you've got all kinds of stuff to learn there. No. And then by the time you get to the looking at how you build the future in Hebrew, then there's no way to be confused. Does that make sense? Because you've already learned all of those forms as present forms before you've even looked at the future in Hebrew. And then when you look at the future in Hebrew, you go, oh look, in Hebrew we do this, which looks a bit like the present in Arabic, no? But if you want to mention it, but in Arabic we have ha, because that's the other thing about the future in Arabic. It's very simple. You just have the ha. The only thing you really need to think about is how like syllables change when you add that ha. No.
Yeah. I'm not sure if I understand you. You said, because also it's one of our problems, because also I think when we wrote together, we started our course from the form of the active participle, which is like sakin, arif, shaif, this. And then like in Hebrew, it works all the time. But then in Arabic, there are just certain verbs that you can use like in this form to present. And then what happened is that students, like because they didn't know that there is a difference between arif and bafham, and in Hebrew it's exactly the same, like it goes into one form. So students started to have like a...
Well, those are two different words.
What?
I think even arif and barif. Because you're like arif and bafham. I'm like, there's a philosophical difference between.
Sorry, bafham, fahem.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
I felt a bit different. You always
You saw my eyes going back.
Everyone is so focused.
Yeah.
Barif, arif and barif. In Hebrew, okay, it's one form, and then like, students started. We either like didn't tell them that they can't actually use it, or like we had to like.
But hold on, in Hebrew, like the form barif, it does not exist, right?
No, it doesn't exist.
No.
Unless you think, it doesn't.
No.
Unless.
Because it is like built out of the imperfect, and the imperfect exists.
But it exists as future.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So arif is I will know. I mean in Hebrew.
No, ya'arif.
Yeah, like the cognate of arif.
How is that I will know in Hebrew?
Eda, like araf, eda.
I wanted to understand what you were saying.
So yeah, what I was saying, I mean, there's loads of routes you can go here, right? There's loads of routes. All I'm saying is if you understand what you're avoiding and what your choices are, it's less problematic. So there's no one right way to go here, because this isn't a massive problem. If it was a massive, very complicated thing, there'd be one clear way to go, But so what I was saying is that you could learn arif and then just say like, interestingly, we have this one present in Hebrew, right? But in Arabic, we have like 3 presents. In Arabic, we have more concern about, and you make it interesting like that, right? The way we time the language. So then your focus, or at least your students' focus, as far as they know, is that you're differentiating arif, barif. Arif, بعرف أعرف. You're going to differentiate those things, and the focus is that you're always in the future. You're in the present. So there's going to be no confusion because your focus is on the way you're deciding between three different types of time. Then it's very heavily installed that what you're learning is the present, right? Now, to make that interesting, you've got all kinds of stuff you weave in along with that, right? Because we don't want to be like hammering three versions of the present and feel so stuck in a language, right? So we need to weave interesting stuff. So like the root stuff is a great stuff to weave in that moment, like the being able to figure words out and guess words. And like I say, like you might find regular patterns like darasha, was it? You might find different words that change in that same way. Like kelb, how do you say dog? Keleb. So you can find patterns there, hunt for patterns there. Then you can weave that stuff in. That gets that part of them guessing words good and playing with the consonants and all that, whilst you're focused on these different presents. Now, once you've got the three different presents in Arabic, you have everything apart from the past, right? Because you have the continuous past, like if you say, أنا كنت عايش, like I used to live. Do they do that in Palestine as well? So you got that one just by learning kunt, right? And then by learning kunna, you actually get the past endings. So you do that first. You learn kunti, kunna, whatever can. And then you build this past with the present. You build the future with the present because it is the present with just ha, though. So like you see, there's this way you can weave it together where there shouldn't be any confusion. If you're working too strongly on intuition, like if you're in your course writing, you're trying to make it so that your students don't have to think, that's when you're going to have the problems.
And you're saying that when we're teaching the three forms of present, like the three types of present, how, like, are we sticking to just one, to I, or like, do we want to use the fact that Hebrew and Arabic have, I'm talking about.
No, of course. If we focus on the present and we're going to learn those different sounds that are otherwise in Hebrew associated to the future, no. So we'd be learning arif, baraf, araf, arfin. I don't usually use that word arif in that thing. So that's I have to change verbs. But yeah, biyekalimu. Bitkalim, whatever, right? You're going to learn all of those, but your focus is on differentiating the different ways that you have to refer to the present. So you've learned the sounds that are otherwise associated to the future in Hebrew, but you haven't spoken about the Hebrew in future, the future in Hebrew. No one's even going to notice it. No one was even going to notice it.
We're not using it. We're not saying like think about future in Hebrew and bring the sounds.
No, just after, he's saying. Just after when we will go to the future, right?
I would say that if you feel like using Hebrew to referencing these sounds causes more problems than benefits, then create distance from it. Those are your two options, right? So you can either connect the things or you can create distance. And that depends if it's confusing or not. So if you feel like it gets confusing, then you create, so all of that suggestion I was making was saying how you would create that distance. So you're focusing on the present, on the root patterns, and then by the time you get to looking at how you get to future in Hebrew and say how you do it in Arabic, it's not a problem because everybody's clear on what those sounds do because you've been using them to differentiate three types of present. And you don't need help. Like, first, there's two reasons you don't need help. Firstly, you don't need help like for people to remember t, I, whatever, because they're concurrent throughout the language, right? Enta, t, ahna, n. So you don't need Hebrew for that, for number one. And I had another reason, but it's not even important now. That's a big enough one. Like you don't need Hebrew. So maybe the problem was being too fixed on taking advantage of the fact that those sounds are the same in Hebrew. Well, you don't need Hebrew for this. It's actually within Arabic. There's a coherence there. Do you know what I mean? So, and then the interesting thing would be to see that when you're giving those sentences, yeah, it wouldn't even matter because if you're Yeah, you wouldn't have. I was going to say you could be given those sentences in Hebrew and they could be misunderstood as future sentences, but no, because you're at the beginning of the course and no one even knows that. So yeah, it's a non-problem. Is the short answer.
But how would you explain it for Hebrew speakers? Like the different, like if we talk about the active participle, which is the present in Hebrew, and then you need to explain that like certain verbs in Arabic take the active participle to talk about the Hebrew, like this form, and other needs to. And in Hebrew, we don't have it.
Right.
We don't
So it's certain verbs to do with perception. It can be philosophically interesting in the sense of like you can often see it as something that changes you, which is amazing because like once you see something, light hits the back of your eye, you have a chemical reaction, you're changed. You're changed by this exchange of information, right? And that's interestingly where you use words like a'arif instead of ba'arif or fahm because they're like experiential things. Sama'. Right? Stuff that actually literally impacts you as an electric bundle of nerves. So that's an interesting way to present it. You can look more specific, ask natives more about like the way that they're used and there will be these nuances there. But so that if you make it interesting, nothing is ever, if you make something that people will want to think about, then you don't have problems. If it's like, oh, I have to think about that, then you have problems. So it's very interesting, you know. So basically, it's like most of the time you're going to have a normal verb, right? But sometimes we can do what we do in Hebrew. So that's something that requires people's attention. Then the other thing that requires people's attention is like building the affinitive without the b, like the situations where you need the b for the verb and when you don't. So there's all kinds of stuff that's going to take people's attention. It's actually only a problem for the teacher who has that crossover in their head between the future of Hebrew in Hebrew and the present in Arabic. It's only a problem for you. They don't know yet. Do you know what I mean? They haven't noticed because the way you're doing it is just not where your focus is. You're going to learn and then you're going to learn some other bits and pieces, and then you're going to learn the t, and you're going to learn how that's like enter, and then how you can put the e from enti on the end to make it feminine if it works like Egyptian. You know, your focus isn't on Hebrew in that point. And then by the time you get to it, the only difference is that like Arabic uses ha. And like I say, if your students are learning thoughtfully, then they're not going to have that mistake. This kind of mistake, right, getting these confused because they're similar, is what people like that learn at school, where they just like put language in front of you for years and expect it to go into your brain. Those will have the problems with these similar forms. But people that you create a thinking journey through should not have this problem.
I feel like I don't feel like the problem is that they're confused because of Hebrew. I feel like we're trying to do something that maybe is not working, but we're trying to make their life easier. But
and you're making it harder, yeah.
We're trying to make it easier by not teaching them like 7 different, like a paradigm of 7 different sounds that they need to learn, and telling them you already have these, like you have this knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you can make a reference to that where it's sensible, but the biggest point is looking, you know, like when you're not focused on tense. So if you're looking at enter, like how do you say enter in Arabic, in Hebrew? Right. So exactly, you're gonna say like you can draw attention to how it's the T relating to you. You can, and you want to do that, but without thinking about times of verb. So your focus is on enter rather than on the verb. No. So I see what you want to do, but you don't need it because, I mean, you can do it. You can take advantage of, oh, look, we use these sounds in Hebrew, but when you do it, you reference words like ahna, anta, anna, instead of the verbs, right? So we don't get into that confusion. But what that is a gate to is getting people to understand the coherence within Arabic. You know, so that's what I do in English, and of course, no one has these sounds in English. And especially if you're not learning something vertically, you're not learning them all at once, they're spaced over time, there's absolutely no problem. You don't need any help. It might just be interesting to know that, like, we use a T in Hebrew. And then, like I say, when you reference that, you can use the pronouns enter instead of the verb. So then you're avoiding that crossover. You know the thought, the wires that you want to avoid crossing. So this is all a question of weaving at the end of the day. Right? So I think that was the problem. You wanted to weave it together and it was causing you more harm than good. Which is an interesting learning experience. It's annoying, like because you write loads and then you have to throw it away a lot of the time. But there's always good things you want to save. But like I was saying to Naomi before we started, like I've done that so much for Japanese the last month. Like I wrote so much stuff I had to throw away, but it was what helped me find the way, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so tempting because like to show that it's the same poem, then they can like in track 16 say it all, but
the problem there, you reduce thought. Because I guess the way you were doing that is you were just taking advantage to get them to say very complicated sentences that they would otherwise not understand, right? So you were doing a little hack, but that hack's going to cause problems because you're just creating grey area. No? So sometimes it's cool if it involves some thought behind it, like with the patterns of the consonants, because you have to think about it, you have to shift it or whatever. But if you're not focused on the language and you're focused on the thoughts, like the mental environment, then you realise it's all wrong. Does that make sense? So you might have other opportunities like that where you feel like stuff that you can transfer over without the thought and it will bite you in the arse.
But it is a whole new direction, and I like it. It's like, yeah, we're gonna throw a lot of things remote because of that, but it sounds good. But I do want to, like, before, like, yes, okay, we're doing it. I wanna, because our thought here, or like our hope was that in one explanation, in like one sentence, we could give them the tools to have like a paradigm of 7 person, because so we don't need to even teach how we will be like.
Yeah, so again, it's like you're thinking from your mind of someone that's trained their mind thinking about language now for years. Right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of thoughts to have what you're expecting. So half your students will work perfectly. Ah, brilliant, thank you for that. And the other half will be like, oh, that's me out. Remember, it's not one thing at a time, it's one thought at a time. So there's just too many thoughts there. You got these sounds here, but they're a different time and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, it will work for some people. For other people, they won't actually think, they will just kind of understand what you're asking for, especially if it's in a workshop situation. They will understand that this sound makes this sound. They will kind of understand what they have to say, right? So, again, I don't know the whole context around it, exactly what you did, so it can be more or less like this. But the key point is just that. Like, I know it feels cool to be able to do that, but what is the point anyway? If you give someone 7 things in one go, you still have to repeat it 7 times every time you remind them that they can do something. So let me give you an example in Japanese, yeah? In Japanese, you have like, koko here, soko there, asoko there, over there, doko where. So that's a pattern that you can find in all different words. Kono, sono, ano, dono. Kore, sore, are, dore. Kochi, sochi, achi, dochi. Right? Now, of course, you feel like you want to teach that in one go because isn't that fun? You can look at the 20 classes. I have 4 hours of Japanese, and just on the end now I got to the A of that pattern. Woven with other stuff throughout the course because it has so much relevancy everywhere. I'm seeing spatial words, so prepositions come up. You know, I have KSAD in the pattern, but then I have the problem of the difference between there and over there, which is not the same in Japanese as it is in English. You know, I have all kinds of other stuff that I want to tie in with that. So even if I was to tell them right from the onset KSAD, I wouldn't then, as a course writer or a teacher, then just ask for all these words and expect them to find them. I'd have to remind them every time about that pattern. So again, avoiding repetition, rather than repeating the whole pattern those 7 times, give a little bit of it, then you go again and you reinforce the other bit of it. Then you go again and you reinforce the other bit on it. So the way that could work with these sounds is the T, no, and then when you see the T with the I on the end or the U on the end for the feminine or the plural, then that's reinforcing again the T related to you. Do you know what I mean? It's never... so yeah, you don't want to give like a major hack drop as much as fun as that might feel, like in one, unless it's got something to do with like vocabulary patterns or something like that. So yeah, there's just basically there's just no need. Like it just felt neat. So I guess that's why it took you longer to let go of it. But there's just because it felt cool, right? This happens when you're creating art because it's art essentially, right? But there's just no need to give that hack, and especially if you've seen that it's been causing problems.
Yes, I think what we've experienced, like there are a few things. Also, we feel that like we feel that our students they don't have the owning, like the ownership. I don't know how to say it's theirs
over the learning process.
Over the learning and over the language, and we're so we want to give it to them. But I think that was something that happened to us lately in the past few years, that we lost a bit of our creativity, and it's not like a specific problem that I can tell you oh, we don't know what to do with that word or this aspect, but it's something more I think you always it means you said that it needs to be beautiful. It needs to be
it needs to be beautiful. It needs to be exciting. You need to be conscious of your contours in an entertainment kind of way. So again, I'm really proud of the Japanese thing, right? Even though it's in tester mode, I really put the bar high, and even in tester mode, when I'm revising it and I'm going over it, I'm like, okay, all right, that's done really well. I have this high concentration, then we have something where we find something interesting culturally, and we find something we get to laugh about, we find something we get to compare English culture to, and at the same time, where the semantic space that's being opened, that's also part of the contour. So if you're feeling this, a bit dry about it, it just means life's requiring more from you. It's the same way if you sit and you write a song on the guitar. Do you know what I mean? If it sounds mundane and drony, you need more notes. Or do you know what I mean? So it's the same with this. Just keep rising the bar, and you will find the excitement. I have to battle with this with myself as well. Of course, it's such an overwhelming thing. Imagine I'm speaking a language, teaching a language I don't speak. That's so complicated. All the checks I have to do, everything I have to doubt. It's really overwhelming, and the only way I can get through it is making it more beautiful, making it a more beautiful experience. Sorry, something just occurred to me. Maybe you need to, because I'm still thinking, because I can see that you're still thinking about this. So I'm still thinking about it, right? Something that when you're comparing the differences with the different present, is to give them different situations. So that also has the huge benefit of once you put your student's mind in a situation where they're imagining a situation that they're reacting to emotionally, then it's more interesting. So emotionally in the sense of if you have to choose between fahim and bafham based on the context, that's another really good way to play with tension contours as well, to have fun, to relax the class, to get everybody back with you. You've noticed how people's eyes glaze over when they're trying to remember something and they're not with you anymore, right? So using scenarios helps like that. So you say, imagine this happens, blah, 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 blah. What are you going to say? You're going to say an arif and a barif. And you're going to have to do lots of checks with native speakers, which is also interesting for you because it makes your Arabic more native and more honed, right? And you've got to do all these tests, and that's more fun for you as well because you get to... I really enjoy doing these tests with native speakers. It's usually really funny. So yeah, that could be a cool way to solve both of these problems, right? It brings the language into real life a little bit more. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
So I've been doing a lot of that again with these Japanese courses because you have these particles like ne, yo, that you put on the end of the sentence which express different things. If you look at the translations for them, you have ne, yo, and yo ne. And if you look at the translations, all the translations are the same. Because it depends on the context. If I say to you, it's cold, isn't it? I can just be having a shared experience, oh, isn't it cold? I can be asking, it's cold, isn't it? I can be being emphatic, oh, isn't it cold? And depending on my attention, if I say samuine, samuyone, samuyo, it depends on my intention, not on the words. So this is very similar to the difference, for example, with fahim and bafham. No? Mm-hmm. So, sorry, just because I could see you still thinking about that, I was like, that's another thing, when your focus is on that and it's also tied in with other focuses along the way,
it just sounds more rich, I think.
Yeah.
It's
a lot richer, and like I say, when you say we use a T for enter, you mentioned that the T comes from enter. You don't have to even talk about Hebrew. But you can also say it like in Hebrew, because if you're referencing eta rather than the verb, do you know what I mean? So what you're doing is you're trying to avoid that confusion, but that confusion is never going to come if you're doing these scenarios and people are trying to work out whether I need to say fahem or bafham. They're not going to be confused about whether this is future or not. It's not where their focus is. That's just a concern you have. So again, that's a mental theatre thing, right? Remembering what's in our heads as the teacher is not in the student's head. They only know what we tell them.
yeah.
But like I say, what I've described in a minute there can go over like 40 tracks. It just, or 20 or 10. It just depends on so many other things. No? But the point is that your focus being there and the focus being on the connection within Arabic, these sounds, like basically, yeah, it was just causing that drop of these sounds are the same. It's just so unnecessary. And it's so fundamental. You could always cause that person to choose the wrong tense because you've made that association. I said that very I said that very accusatively because you've made that association. But yeah, so I would definitely advise against it. Right. So if you want to ever challenge that, of course you can, and you can ask me like, oh, there's this detail we didn't mention, so maybe you're wrong, right? But
we do want to connect things to Hebrew, right? Like for example, with the add-ons, like we also like say about like it's the same sounds. And
yeah, of course. I mean, it's brilliant to connect things to Hebrew, but in a way that they're not going to confuse. So like one of the things you'd be connecting to Hebrew during this is the salama shalama, dorasa dorasha. No, it's just in this case, it's just you're not saving anyone any problems because, like I say, it's something you'd space out anyway. You're not saving anybody. You're just adding a confusion, and it's causing you problems as course writers as well.
Yeah.
So what do you think about the add-ons, the suffixes like ukhti, achoti, like which are also the same or very close to Hebrew?
There's no confusion.
I mean, like, yeah, there's no confusion. I mean, of course, not to mean that you shouldn't be referencing Hebrew. You should be wisely referencing Hebrew wisely, all right? So not where it's going to confuse, not when it feels like you're reinventing the wheel. If you feel like you're giving people extra thoughts that are pointless, don't bother.
Would it make sense to, I'm sorry for like diving...
No, I like it, meta, all the way.
Because I think for some pronouns it makes sense, like maybe like I, like ana will probably teach like ana in the present, and then like inta or ihna or inti, like, and then it works, like it's beautiful. And then others it doesn't really work, like homme or hiye. And maybe it makes sense to leave those to the future.
When you say it doesn't work, what do you mean doesn't work?
No, it works, like we can just teach the sound, but it doesn't have a connection to the pronoun, like inta or inti. Or
See, there's other things that are changing, making the decisions here, for example. So like at the beginning you said enta, ahna, whatever. Now there's other elements there, right? The fact that you've got like the plural of the rayah, rahin, fahmin. So firstly, you're likely to stick with the singular ones whilst you're learning those verbs. And then when you're ready to learn the plural, then you will go on to the plural ones, right? So there will be other, like basically my point is this stuff is very secondary. And if you're giving it the focus, it's going to cause confusion. It doesn't need any focus. I mean, it's secondary even when I'm teaching it in English, let alone from Hebrew. Like even in English, it's quite a secondary focus for me.
Sorry, what is secondary?
Like the learning those pronouns or learning the suffix, the prefixes for them and the suffixes for them. Do you know what I mean? Like I have wider concerns and that's getting dropped along the way. Does that make sense?
Because they're like plural and less used, or?
Just because, no, because it's not difficult. Does that make sense? It's not difficult. Anything's difficult if you have to remember 20 words at once, right? But with all the connections that we're doing and in the way we're weaving, none of that is difficult. So it's not problematic material, and the order it can come in really, really depends on everything else that's going on. Just I mentioned the most logical thing there is that you're going to have like the singular stuff together, then you're going to see the feminine at some point, you're going to see the plural, right? So those are 3 ways to group the unfolding of this, right? So maybe at the beginning you're playing with hoa. Well, that depends because you have the problem always with the gender, right? Because if it's Anna, you can have male or female. So I did an Arabic workshop like a few months ago, randomly, and I just like edited a little bit of what I do in the course, and I think I changed it so that I avoided gender at the beginning. Does that make sense? It just depends which way you want to go. Maybe you like if you do Anna, then you need to do the gender right from the beginning. But if you start off talking about Hayya or Hoa, sorry, then you don't. You know, if you talk about like if you start with Hoa and Anta, then you're just with the singular. So all of that, like, there's no real right way. The right way is about the thoughts the students having. Like, what have they learned how to do? What are they confident doing? What is second nature doing? You know. If you give them like the list of all these things that are the same in Hebrew, and they need to independently have like 3 thoughts to get there, and you're standing there like looking at them going, go on.
That's exactly how it goes.
Right. So that's writing problems, right? So it's one thought at a time.
Think the ending, don't forget it.
Right. Yeah. I mean that happens sometimes, right? But like with good writing, you're only getting someone to think about one new thing at a time. So remember, the more we understand, we'll think in panoramas, but that's not how we teach. We can reflect on the panorama afterwards, but we don't go like, here's a panorama. Generally speaking, every rule can be broken.
I think I also have a question. It's a bit more general,
Okay.
maybe. But like when you think about the course and you think about like an introduction or like a full course, so we decided to start with an introduction because it made more sense to start from. But like our goal is like to go to a full course, and I feel like there are so many things in Arabic to teach. I mean, there are so many things also in Hebrew, of course. But like I think that trying to think about an introduction as a part of a full course, or like I don't know if you do it, like if you think about introduction.
It's just basically the like first third of a full course, basically.
Yeah.
And the full course is everything you feel like you need to know to learn everything else. So if you're going to make courses, you can make courses forever. And this is another problem of language learning in the sense of like some people feel like something doesn't work if they're not fluent after it. And it's like, no, darling, you don't work. It's like, I can give you this structure and then you got to go out there and you got to use the language, right? So personally, and like, it's really fun to make activities to help people to do that, right? If you bring them together for language exchanges and what have you. But in regards to the course, what I'm trying to do in a complete course is like the whole structure where anything new you would come across, you could easily figure out yourself from what you know. That's the point of a full course. Where I advise sticking for now with the intro for the Arabic, because when it's not your native language and you don't have to resolve everything, it's much easier because there's a lot of stuff you can park. You can be like, oh my God, I'm not going to understand that for... you know, or there's all of this stuff I need to understand first. And that's why I decided, look, I'm not going to write full courses in languages I don't speak anymore because it drives me mad. I need to be able to go like, okay, there's all this stuff I need to understand first, blah, 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 blah. So anyway, if you wanted to practice a full course, I would concentrate on Hebrew and then get that experience. And then like the most teaching experience is the better. It's so important. And like I say, the most difficult students, so the people that don't have experience learning languages, people that don't have as much like education, you know, and smart people will help you realize like things about your course, no? But, you know, of course you're going to be smart and like, you can be wildly smart and wildly uneducated. Do you know what I mean? These will be the best people to help you understand the problems in your explanations and the way the course comes together. But yeah, man, I would say like the most important thing is just to have fun, and when it doesn't work, don't get frustrated. Just think like, think like an engineer. You know, like what do I need to do? What do I need to construct?
We usually think, what would Michalis do?
You can get that tattooed if you want. But yeah, man, I would say like try and get as much experience as you can. Try and do it so it's motivated. Like I'm not sure what you guys are living from at the moment. Like if this is a hobby or if you can live from teaching, especially if you can live from teaching, it's super motivating because that's pressure as well, and it's positive pressure when you're getting paid for classes, you know. And just whatever inspires you to raise the bar and just be the best technician and engineer that you can. Do you know what I mean? And then that will lead you to just keep finding the better path.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And like I say, it's really miserable to do this unless that's your aim. Do you know what I mean? Otherwise it's very overwhelming.
Yes.
No, I was thinking how to like use teaching as like practice for. I think we were always having problem with this, like taking students, but then not like using them really to
right.
do this. Just continue teaching
every single class you have to see it like this. Again, otherwise it's miserable because it's like, this is not an easy thing to do. It's so much concentration, it's so much focus on another person. So like I say, this is a really horrible job to have unless you have the bar up there and you really manage to motivate yourself. So again, every single class is feeding into your course writing. Every single class you see it like that. You get new ideas in the class, you're ready to make edits to your notes in the class, you're ready to put your ideas in there, and also you're using that person as a test. So sometimes the student is the problem, right? If people have like learning anxiety and they can't get out of, a lot of the time, the student can be the problem, right? You can have a terrible student, it's not necessarily that your course is terrible. Like some people will work better with the audios when someone's not looking at them waiting for an answer, right? Apart from that, noticing brain farts, excuse the terminology, that students have, you know, wires that get crossed, which is probably why you brought this question to me today about relating it to Hebrew. Like noticing that is your information, you know, that's telling you. And then again, like I say, the artistic side, just wanting to make it cooler, find better words, more surprising sentences. I can say that, wow. Do you know what I mean? Like all of that experience.
So when you are like in this period of writing Japanese, so you take students like just for 10 lessons and you tell them, okay, that's enough, I can't teach you anymore because...
I mean, to be honest, for Japanese, all I've done is I just recorded it with one guy and put it online for feedback, right? So, and I did some workshops, some open public workshops just to get the general vibe of the speed. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, there's all different ways you can do that. Also, when you teach people, bear in mind, it doesn't have to necessarily be your script. You can also teach people in a class setting in a bit more vertical way. Like you can have different types of students here. You can have a student that wants to have 2 classes with you a week or 1 class a week forever because they like to do it. So it's not a student that you need to run through 15 hours with and finish. No. It's a student you can... Because the thing about the reason the thinking method course needs to be written so well, one of the reasons is because it's such a short amount of time. But if you're having an hour a week for God knows how long, you can work more horizontally. You know, you could do, I'm going to practice this stuff in my class today, that in my course, this thing that I'm doing in an hour class might be woven over 50 tracks, right? But I can do that in my class today. Do you know what I mean? So your classes can be thinking method style, but not necessarily thinking method course. Does that make sense? Yeah. Thinking method course is for somebody that wants their 15 hours and then get on the road. Do you know what I mean? But that's not everybody. You know, so yeah, and also, by the way, you can think about visual material because these classes can feed into visual material. So like I say, you've got to stay motivated. Personally, I'm not motivated by repeating the same thing. It would drive me mad. I need to be building something new. So if I'm repeating the same course, then I'm going to want something new to come out of that. And that can be visual material as well. So you've seen, for example, the Arabic vocabulary cards. Yeah. They're awesome. That's a brilliant idea for all Semitic languages. You can use that idea. I don't know if you all know it, but like, do you? Yeah, like, see, the fact that you've got to think the word out, you don't get told the word. You've got to think it with the root system. You can do this. You can work to publish that. You can have it online for free, and you can have for sale copies. Do you know what I mean? Just keep striving to motivate yourselves. Do you know what I mean? In that way. But anyway, we're all different. That's me personally. Like, if I need to teach the same thing, like all of those teaching sessions needs to be leading into something that's going to be bigger. Otherwise, I'm not the patient Mihalis I pretend to be. Yeah, so I mean, maybe that's something each person has to reflect on personally, right? Like, how much do I want to teach? How frustrating do I find it? You know, maybe I want to focus on the course. Maybe I don't want to be teaching all the time. Maybe I want this period. Maybe I really enjoy it if I'm thinking about creating other material. Like, we've all got to find out our way, because it is intense. It is a very, very intense way to teach.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think that, I mean, it's been many years that we're trying to do it, and I think that I sometimes hope to see someone else doing it, like Arabic for Hebrew speakers. I was like, maybe someone else started to do it. I don't know, because I do believe that it's the best way to teach and to learn, and I think that we really, really want to make it like good, and I think that we all have it very deep in our hearts, like we want to do it, we put all the effort, but I feel that, I mean, even just now I'm much more not even motivated. Like, I feel that I had like things in my mind that I was going over, like the three of us, like we've been talking so much and working so much and trying, and like it's like a bit of like some fresh air.
Yeah, having the same conversations for like
and like start trying the same ideas and thinking like the same. Like sometimes we're like, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe something that we think is a problem is not a problem. Maybe. So I think that like we do want to create a course that will be good, and we do know that it's like so much effort. I mean, we are not in an illusion that it's so easy. We're just.
I know. By now, I know. 6 years.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think also that we believe it. Like, I think that as students, or like the three of us, like we took different courses. Like Uriah made me and Maya work it because I can tell by himself, but he did like the Spanish course and like really fell in love in the method, and he really wanted to learn Arabic, and I was like, this is what should be, like this is what we need to do. So I think like we want to understand how we can take it to a different place from where we are right now, because what we do right now is not working. And I think, I mean, it is working in some certain ways, but I think that even hearing from you, like things that we did before gives us like, okay, it's okay that this is what we do, because we're like, we had the book and we had your courses, but like, I don't know, hearing you saying like, yeah, you can teach like private courses, like private lessons, and it doesn't have to be like a perfect thinking method course, like you can do it.
Yeah, well, it depends what your student, they're looking for, you know? Depends what they're looking for.
It's for me, like, was okay, it is like.
Yeah, and like, well, that's the thing about visual material, you know, anything can be thinking method style in the sense that like you want, it's all about the thoughts that are being had. So that's, again, like you always have a brick wall when you're focused on language. If you're over focused on the words that you're converting rather than the thoughts you need to have to build it, that's just the most important thing. And it's so much more pleasurable when you're curating that mental experience, so much more focused there, and the language falls into it. Otherwise, you're fighting against the brain with the form of the language. Again, Japanese is a perfect example, you know, because like, you can't translate anything. Like, if I say I'm sitting on the bench, they say benchy, right? One of those words. If I'm sitting on the bench, the word for on is benchy ni. But if I'm eating on the bench, the word for on is benchy de. So every word can translate into like 5 words actually. Like,
can I in Japanese, like also old people say benchy?
Yeah, because it's about what's imported. So you just learn like, oh, benches are Western, are they? you know. So and sometimes you have coinciding things, you know. So you can have like I don't know, aisukurimu, and then I think they have kakigori, something like that, which is like their traditional shaved ice. You know, so they will take the Western thing and they'll keep the Western word. So it's not like only modern people talk like that. Anyone that knows ice cream will call it ice cream, right? Yeah. But yeah, what was I saying about that?
Sorry.
No, that's all right. I talk so much. Yeah. Anyway, you must have more doubts now about specific stuff.
Oh yes.
Go on then.
Well, so I mean, we can also continue with the same topic of like, this is more like a reframing question because I think so. Let's go with the with your direction of like عارف and or let's say like active verbs like the fa'il won't be present, just like a simple present in Arabic. Like in most verbs, it will have like a different aspect, and you will use the baf'al for present, like only baf'al.
Sometimes you get colloquial examples where you use one version or the other just because it's a word people say all the time and they're not grammatically reliable, by the way. So if you're having problems with some of these examples, that might be why. But yeah, you've got different situations that you might use it as standalone thing, and then you've also got tons of situations where you use it like as an infinitive, for example, right? Or I'm thinking Egyptian, like after any and or it goes without the B, I think, but I'm not 100% sure. Or just loads of different situations. You've got loads of different situations where you use that form, no? That you can focus on that form, and then from that form I would learn the continuous past. So, أنا كنت عارف, no? You learn that one, and then you shift the focus to these words you were just picking up, like kunt, kunti, kunna. Yeah. And then you use that for the, it's so easy. It's all, Arabic offers this beautiful way to teach itself. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yes, but then it's very complicated to explain. Like I think that Arabic has like the panorama of the verbs, for example, or like the different structures, like the patterns in the verb system, and then you have like different, maybe it's not such a big problem, but like you have different مشكلين, like
variation.
أكتب, أفتح,
like a few variations of the same form, verb form.
Well, there's patterns there as well. Like if there's a long vowel, I think it's the same. حاول, بحاول, حاولت, for example. Like حاول, right? Do you say that for try?
Yeah.
بحاول and then حاولت, right? Okay, the A gets a bit shorter, but that's only because you added the T. Basically, if you have the long vowel, it's the same form, right? If you have X pattern, you have the same form. But those are just two forms, right?
No, I meant more like, for example, if we take أكتب, and then we have also أطبخ, which sounds the same. أكتب, أطبخ, أرسم.
Patterns for verbs.
For verbs, yeah, but then we also have like أفتح. Okay, أسمع, it's all with the close vowel, but what else? We have like أسأل. We have like I think it's another thing to teach our students, which sometimes we try to, not to avoid, but like we want to give them like one, like inside the patterns are like different families that give, like they change the sound. So like there are lots of things to concern when we, like I think that this is also where it's hard for us sometimes, that we feel that we want to teach one thing and we want them to have one thought, but then in order to create another thing, there are so many small steps, and then it's just like we don't know how to make it.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So it's one thought at a time, just to clarify, right? It's one thought at a time. It doesn't mean like one thought for question. They can have 4 thoughts for the question they need to answer you, but they need to have learnt those 4 thoughts separately. So I know what you mean, because at the beginning when I began writing, I just feel like there was dead ends everywhere. And that's probably just being when you get kind of closed-minded, because you're too focused on fixing what you have rather than on everything you could possibly do. When you get very focused on fixing what you have, it gets miserable again, course writing. Do you know what I mean? But when you remember everything you can do, and I don't know how many rewrites you do, but like I'm rewriting from the beginning. Like, I email it myself in case, like, my computer explodes or whatever, right? If you was to go through my emails, and then, like, with the Japanese, every 2 days, a different version of Japanese. Do you know what I mean? Because I get, like, very concentrated. I'm in there, I need a coffee, and I get very concentrated. Then I go through it thought by thought, and it gets more beautiful every time. There's sometimes I know, like, there's a problem there. I know I'm going to resolve that later. Sometimes I'm like on track 15. I'm like, oh, in track 5, I need to do something differently for this. Make a little note to myself, full of notes in bold everywhere, full of notes of stuff I'm not sure about that I need to ask native speakers, like in a very messy way, you know, because I trust that it's not like I need to find the right words and freeze them there. No, it's the experience that I'm very well aware of is what I need to impart, you know? So yeah, you can have loads of things that you need to have 4 separate thoughts for. It's never going to be hard to divide them up when you realize you have the whole language available to you to give you ways. You know, so if you're looking at the past, for example, yeah? Well, I've actually just given you an example of that. If you look at the past, you've got to learn a different verb form, and you've got to learn the past endings. Well, we've just solved that problem. If we learn first the continuous past, with like kuntaraya, kunnarai, rahin, or whatever, then you've already learned the endings. Na, ti, da, la, 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 la. So you've already learned the endings. Now all you need to do is learn that some verbs change in the past, right? So then you got a new class. We go, okay, in the past, some verbs will change, some verbs don't. Here's the ones that don't. حاول. All right, we can take our endings from kun, and then you do that contrast again. For example, كنت بحاول. كنت بحاول. I was trying, as opposed to I tried. حاولت. You get them to do that contrast. I was trying, I tried. So in that situation, you've got a verb that doesn't change form. You are thinking only about one thing. Because you've already learned kunt, kunna, etc., kunnu. The only thing you're thinking about is putting the T of kunt or the U of kanu or whatever on hawil. And then of course the pronunciation changes that will happen there, which you would have already addressed. You're not going to get this far into the course and not have looked at that. So you see what I mean about the one thought at a time in regards to what you're addressing, you know? So that's a really, really good way of doing that. You go kuntarayeh before you learn rot, right? Because the T you need for rot is on kunt. End the story. And the T on kunt, you learned it already from enta. Enough. Well, not if it's ana. You know what I mean. So it's actually really simple. You've got so much fun to have here. You know, there's mostly have fun. You know, what are interesting words to discuss? What are excellent patterns? What are sentences that are going to make people go, oh, I can't say that. And then they realise that even though there's 4 new words there, they don't realise they can say that long sentence. Playing with those contours of doing stuff like, you know, his house, her house, and then doing a really long sentence, you know, and then short, a little punchier sentences. All those contours, you know?
Yeah.
But there's always, long story short, you never have to do 4 ideas at once. Only if you're stuck by you've hemmed yourself in by your own writing. No? But if you start looking at the ways to divide those ideas, almost the course starts to write itself in a way, you know? Yeah. Oh, it's so nice to write for languages that you actually know. Do you know what I mean? Because half of it has got to be like imagination and fantasy when I'm writing for a language I don't know. I'm like, okay, if Japanese works like this, I'm going to do that. If Japanese works like this, I'm going to do that. All right, when do I get to ask someone? Tuesday. Okay, better continue writing.
You're doing and it goes to the other aspect.
Yes.
What I wanted to ask the present with like teaching, I'm thinking about it like maybe labis and balbas. Okay, would be a good example of like 2 forms of two types of present. So in Hebrew, we just don't have this distinction between like an habitual and like progressive. And then balbas is where like in a habitual.
Yeah. Okay.
And then so in Hebrew we just don't have this distinction.
Yeah.
And we're also we're also wondering like how to talk about aspects to like speakers of language that doesn't have.
I think we spoke about this already, no? So this would be an interesting example of the type of verbs that can change for that aspect that don't in Hebrew. So where is another one that kind of changes you. So that's my idea that comes off the top of my head, right? We have ideas and we need to look at the language to see how coherent they are. But usually it's something that changes you in some way, that you use that form. And where is interesting, because putting clothes on is a kind of big identity shift, right? So it's interesting that where does that as well.
Yeah. But it is the difference, what like how do like we want to explain the difference in meaning between balbas and labis. Not the fact that there is like,
Oh, okay, well that's simple, isn't it? The difference is I'm wearing with I wear generally. Again, you have to double check all of this with native speakers exactly how they use it, but that's the crux of it, right?
The main aspect in general.
For example, if I'm going to school, I say baroh, like I go to school generally. But if I'm going now, rayah.
yes, but we don't have it in Hebrew. Like in English.
Yeah, so you just describe it. So you describe that, right? So you say, I know what you mean. You can't give the translation in Hebrew. Okay, now I understand your question. Yeah, so you just say, in Arabic, we differentiate between this and this. So again, it's putting people in the situation. If this is a situation, you say this. If this is a situation, you do that. Then later, when you're getting them to do something else and the focus is elsewhere, you put it in there and you get them to make the mistake on purpose. You go, very good. The thing I asked you about was right. You did that right. But if I mean I'm going to school now, it's not baroh, is it? Right, good. All right. Because then also that correcting correctly, right? That correction in context helps it come back. So there's so much you're weaving together all the time. You can't, it doesn't just write. It's every time you go through it, you get another idea of when you can do another plug like that until you get something so tight. And that's the best way to describe it. And I was saying, like, this is some of my tightest writing in the sense that, like, there's less time lost. Everything is doing something. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just yeah.
So yeah, like you would describe it, you know, it's a bit of a clumsy thing that you have to describe it. So you're going to weave that along with other stuff and then you're going to leave it and then you're going to come back to it. You know what I mean? Have fun with it rather than think, oh, this is a problem. And also, like, I think when we feel like it's a robotics thing, right? Like that we've got to find these equivalencies in these patterns, then we feel a lot of the time that we're against a brick wall and that something's wrong. And it's much more artistic than that. It's much more artistic than that. It's much more on ideas than physical, you know. So there's much more flexibility when we're trying to write our way around these difficulties, you know.
Yes, I think it's like also we feel sometimes that we need, like when we work with native speakers, so we get like different answers for, especially for this like the active participles, and then at some point we realize that like, okay, we tried to make like a generalization of where do we use it, but then we saw that there are different words. For example, I can say I'm going tomorrow, bukra raiha, but I can say I'm seeing tomorrow. And then we like shaifa bukra. We saw that shaifa is only for now, and then I think we started.
So hold on, this is gonna be a massive problem of native speakers. So many times I've been decided on something like this, and I'm not sure that might be the case, but so many times I've been decided on the case, and then a new native speaker joins and everything changes. So there is so many problems with working with native speakers that we need to be so aware of. The first one is how well do they understand the translation I'm giving them in Hebrew? Number two, beyond the translation, the situation is the only way to understand. And still, when you give somebody a situation, some people, we all have different minds. Some person can put themselves into a hypothetical situation and say, this is what I would say. And other people have a massive problem doing that. So there is real investigation that you want to do. Remember, it's for you also because you want to speak Arabic. When you're focused on that, it's less stressful than if you're thinking, I need to figure this out for my course. Because that also goes into your short-term memory and it confuses you afterwards, right? You try to get clarifications of things and you get confused. So remember, it's also for you that you want to understand it. But I'd say be very, very careful on how you work with native speakers. Discern how different native speakers understand more or less better what you're saying. And the most important thing is the situations. So I'll give you an example again for Japanese, right? Like if we're eating ramen and I say, oh, isn't it lovely? usually what you're doing there is you're saying it's a shared experience. I'm referring to the shared experience like being uplifting. Oh, isn't it lovely? Oishine. So this is what ne does, right? But in another situation, so like a Japanese person will tell you, their simple explanation will be, all right, if we're together, we use ne. If we're together, we use ne. And then that's what you go and teach. But that's not true. Because in the same situation, maybe I know that you complain all the time, and I want to say, oh, isn't it good ramen? But I'm trying to, because I know you're going to bitch about it. Well, then I don't use ne. I would probably use yon ne. Or even if we're eating at the same time, if I think I'm the ramen expert and I'm certifying the ramen, like I love this thing. Here's my stamp of approval for the ramen, then I might say, oishii yo, right? So a native speaker you've really got to put them in that position. And sometimes you need to even ask them something else and come back and they will give you a different answer. Because something that's very important to think about with native speakers, or language generally, the part of your brain that produces language is not the same part that thinks about language. So you can say to people like, do you use this word? And they'll say, I never use that word, don't like that word. And then 5 minutes later they use that word. Like no one, my favorite example, although I just have millions of examples, was just one that sticks in my head, saying to my neighbour, how in Asturias, you guys, you say lunch for breakfast, don't you? She goes, no, I don't say that. I say, yeah, man, every morning you say to me, "¿Qué almorzaste?" Like, that's what did you have for lunch. But it makes sense to me because historically the word means little bite. So a little bite could be breakfast, couldn't it? She was like, whatevs. Next morning, "¿Qué almorzaste?" I'm like, I told you. And she was like, oh. And it's like she didn't know herself. That is every native speaker. That is every native speaker. So you have to appreciate that you are doing something really difficult, trying to get to the bottom of these things, The better you get at working with native speakers, the easier your life will become. So yeah, that is one of the most challenging. It's taken me a long time to be able to cut through all of the BS and get to the answer that I need. And still then, like you say, native speakers can disagree. They'll say, I wouldn't say that. But like, yeah, but would someone say that? Yeah, but it sounds like an asshole. And I'd be like, well, that's fine. That's actually the nuance. That's the nuance I'm going for here,
So, like, if we're going to like writing the course, which starting the present tense, and we think like the present tense is a pretty complex picture there, like with the perfect aspect there, like, and then sometimes it's backtab, and sometimes it's kateb, and all these things. So it's like you said, it feels like a lot of dead ends, and I think like sometimes we feel that we can't like keep the students like in the dark for too long, like making them think that it's just present when in fact it's also something else.
But you're not. What you're doing is telling them what they need to do to express a certain idea. No? Keep your truths true and keep them to a minimum. Is good advice generally in course writing. No? So a lot of the time, like I find myself asking native speakers very complicated things. I'm like, what am I asking you? Highlight, delete. Jesus Christ! Like, how much detail am I going in? Like, you need to keep the truths true and minimal, and that those truths will still apply to all of the other different areas they can. So firstly, that gives you some freedom, right? But then also, like I said, with the weaving, it's not like you have to go through all of that before you get anywhere. You can, of course, it would make sense to start with the verb forms that are the same, right? So like the raya fahim form, right? But at the same time you're doing that, you're also learning noun endings, which you can also use for the verbs, like betu and blah, 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 right? And then your weaving begins. There's so much stuff to weave in. So your exploration of the present tense and the different types of present tense, like that could be 30 tracks woven in with everything else. And it might not even feel like the focus for 60, 70% of those 30 tracks. It's only the focus when you learn something new about it, like a new sound for a different person or Do you know what I mean? There's so many lines, there's a lot of threads to the rope. And the more threads, this is also a very, very important concept. The more threads you're able to play with at once, the easier your course writing goes. So if you've got one thread, then you're going to hit a brick wall a lot.
Our
Metaphor
for, do you know what a challah is? Challah bread?
Sounds familiar.
It's a Jewish bread for Shabbat that is like it's braided.
Ah, okay. I thought it was.
So our metaphor is like
100%.
what is the braid?
100%.
The snakes for the challah.
100%. But the more braid you have open, the easier your job is. Think about that, right? So like I said, with the Japanese, I get to number 20 and I finish the KSAD pattern in track 19 or 20. And these are long tracks. It's probably going to be like track 30 by the time like it all gets done properly, right? Because I always do that. I always make tracks that end up being 30 minutes and then I make them 3 tracks, right? So that always happens. I'm like, oh, I've finished my work. Brilliant. Now, I started with the KSAD pattern, I think in lesson 2, when we went from kare, he, to dare, who, changing the K to the D. So the first thing I taught about that pattern, in fact, was the K changing to a D. Now, I know when you have the panorama in your head, KSAD, that's very unintuitive. This is a very important point I'm saying. So it was a very unintuitive thing for me to start there, to go from the K word, which means this something, to the D word that means question something. Now, in terms of course writing, it was the most obvious thing to do. But in terms of somebody looking at their own panorama in their head and they're seeing kono, sono, ano, dono, that's not the place to start on the 2 extremes of that pattern, is it? Mm-hmm. But it makes perfect sense if you think of like you're teaching something memorable, you're teaching somebody to get the question word. So I taught kare, he, dare, who, kono, this, dono, which, koko, here, doko, where. That's brilliant. No, because it's easy. And brilliant because with here and where and he and who, that's loads of different kinds of sentences you can start making now. So then I started to make interrogative sentences with interrogative words. So I need to use a new particle in Japanese because those words are especially highlighted. So this thing that maybe I would have taught in number 20, okay, it's coming here now. You know, I'm learning the difference between wa and ga now, which is whether something's a topic or an especially highlighted topic, like a question word is in Japanese. But you see what I mean? That's one thread that has stayed throughout. And it doesn't mean that I've been doing all those KS words. I've left it for a class or 2, right? But it's one thread that went from class 2 to 20. That gives you so much freedom. And when you're focused on that you have so much freedom. Of course, writing gets so much more fun. Do you know what I mean? When you're stressed about just trying to put it out and get there, you know, so the more free you are, the more threads you can have open running at once, you know. So that was just one thread, the KSAD, but then I have conversational particles, the yon-ne stuff I was talking about. Then you have like grammatical particles that are marking what every word is doing, and then you have the verbs and what the verbs do and the way that and the word order and formality, by the way, because for every sentence in Japanese you have a casual way and a formal way, which is wildly different a lot of the time. You know what I mean? These are all threads that made the course writing so easy. The hard thing for me was all the native speaker stuff, like confirming, writing stuff that's wrong. And like getting an idea about how something works, writing brilliant classes, and then going like, oh, that would be so good if the sentence here was wakaru ne rather than wakatteru ne. All right, that's how it goes, but I'm so focused on the thoughts I need to produce in the other person that the language I'm getting through to get there is almost secondary. The more you can get there, the better everything comes together.
Yeah, I think that's the most important lesson to take.
Any other specific points?
There's something very specific that maybe it's...
All right, the more specific, the better. Go on.
I mean, it's it's like a small thing, but when we want to teach guttural consonants, so yeah, we're thinking just maybe to like consult with you if you have any idea for like a a fun, nice way to teach.
Which one specifically? You mean the
So the like so
Ein.
ein you have the like the
Ah.
finger. But then we would want like what we're thinking of is like finding something that will help with all of them. So like ta and sa and da and and ka. Yeah. So like having like one explanation that will work for all.
Generally speaking, I have a general attitude about pronunciation, right? That the most important thing is understanding that there is a difference and not paying that much attention to it, because the more you get students to pay attention to their sound producing apparatus, unless they're singers, like opera singers or something, you tell somebody like, move your tongue back, they'll probably choke on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, people's mouths get so tense that it's not a good way to instruct people about sound. The best way is to let them know, this is a different S. We get two S's in Arabic, we get two T's in Arabic. And you can say like, it's produced a bit further back, it sounds more like ta, ta, and then just get them to try and imitate it. Chilled, chilled. The more relaxed they are, the less focus they have on worrying about pronunciation, the more it just happens. You've got all of these amazing things in your brain, like trying to, like, you got the most incomprehensibly amazing hearing system, right? That we can hear like 10 voices at the same time and differentiate them on one eardrum. Like, what? Our brain is doing amazing things, right? We've got to let it happen. So we can push it a bit in the right direction, but then like chill. So for me, like, ka. All right, try and do it a bit back. Have fun. If you notice people are, like, I guess people are less like this in Israel. I don't know. Like, I don't know how European people are, right? But like in Europe, or especially Northern Europe, a lot of the time, the problem with people reproducing sounds is that they feel a bit too ethnic doing it, right? That they feel a bit silly. And then, like, just being aware of that, it's so easy to pull someone out of that. You know, you go, this sound doesn't sound weird to Spanish people. What you're doing is sounding weird. Because to English people, to make these big sounds, for example, it sounds weird to them. It might sound aggressive. It might sound, do you know what I mean? And then, so I have a lot of fun with that. You know what I mean? Like especially the ein. So another interesting thing that I like to talk to people about, I like to talk about how sounds in the Middle East or in hotter countries generally, like the sounds can change for you to expel more air, so that you can regulate your mask temperature whilst you're speaking. So this is why, for example, like between Greece and Cyprus, we get all these phonetic shifts because it's hotter in Cyprus. So sounds like and these kind of things that are like tension. I like to describe them as tension releasing sounds, or describe them in that way. Whatever reduces the anxiety around the production of the sound will improve the sound better than any kind of physical instruction. And that works for me, like for the r in Spanish that I couldn't do. And anytime I asked a native speaker, I wanted to punch them because they'd just get in front of my face and be like, I'd be like, yeah, but how? Like this, mother. You know, and then when I gave up, it happened by itself. And I was like, oh, wow. And it was because I was relaxed now. My tongue was relaxed now. Precisely, it's the sounds your tongue needs to be relaxed for. This is actually you would have heard this on my Spanish course, where I'm like, that I said arroz. That's a true story. I was in Peru working at some like kids home or something, and then I said arroz, and I couldn't believe, like, and I was like, arroz, and they were like, el gringo tiene hambre, the gringo's hungry. And I was like, of course. I'm just standing there going, arroz. They don't know what's in my mind. They don't know that I've been thinking about pronouncing the R for a year, do they? They just see this in gringo going like, arroz, rice.
Now.
Anyway, yeah. So that's my advice for pronunciation generally.
We have a lot of like. We had a lot of like reframing question, but I think everything is like shuffled now, so I don't know, like.
Yeah, maybe we should like go back pen to paper. And
this is why I said, like, let's just start on one problem and all the problems will come. This is why I do this.
Yeah, we have.
But if tell me about this reframing stuff, because they're interesting as like mental exercises. So what was the things you were thinking about reframing?
Not just reframing, but maybe to like also like calling some division, like according to what to divide, like negation. So we're doing it like with negation of verbs and negation of
Not
No.
verbs.
not verbs, but it has some problems.
Like ma and mish.
I was just about to say, is this the mishmash problem?
So this is one thing. Also about the suffixes, the habibi, ukhti, and all of those. We want to reframe them in a way that it applies to all of the uses, because they're also the object and also the preposition suffixes. So something there.
I will just say something about that before I forget, because I think I know what you mean. So instead of like going through, you know, like learning all the possessive and then learning words like for me, for example, well, the E of Habibi is a bad example, right? Because it becomes ni, but you know what I mean. Something like ak, Habibak, whatever. Then again, it's perfect for weaving. Do you know what I mean? Other than yours, this can also mean you, right? Rather than doing all of your and then you, he, she, him, him, her, whatever. Does that make sense? So you teach ak and you show that other than your, it can mean you know, Habibak and Ashafak.
Yeah. Maybe we'll say how it is in like the Hebrew connection to it, because we actually it is the same in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Like we do have it as possession, accusative, and like preposition, like indi. So
you forget all those terms, of course, right? And what you will say is just like in Hebrew. So you don't want them necessarily to. They don't need to look to Hebrew for this, right? So you say just like in Hebrew, and then that's it. That's all you need to say about that, right? Just like in Hebrew, other than your, this can also mean you, and then you build some sentences. And then with all of this weaving down the line, then when you learn like betna, right, you can ask them. So if ak from betak, other than your, can mean you, if from betu, other than his, can mean him, what else can this na mean? And then people will tell you, us?
I think you're saying that we are doing the same mistake that like with the first topic, that thinking like let's give them some instructions of how to do the all of the
Too horizontal.
No, but we're not doing it. Like it is spread out. And like I think that the question we had, I don't think our students have a problem with doing it. Like for us when we want to talk about these like add-ons, these like suffixes, we have like a simple word for it in Hebrew that we invented. We're trying we want to have like a title for it or a definition for it that is different than the verb
root. Yeah, I mean, to be honest,
like that like took to be. So like the e of took to be is a different e than bet.
Yeah, of course. But I don't think it's important. Like, I think what's important is the translation. So I didn't bother giving these names. Yeah, I think there's just too much of the way that you've understood the language that you want to share with your students. And remember, the reason we have all this hard work is to save them from having it. So I feel like there's all these mental panoramas that you've used that you want to, but no, that's what you've learned to be the course writer. Now, all of that, you want to boil it down. Yeah, man, it's a relief, actually. It means like you don't have to reproduce everything you have in your mind. You need to boil that down to what they need to reproduce the language, and then also to continue learning through analyzing themselves, right? So it's a real curated experience from what you've come to know. Is this so yeah, I know that's sigh somewhere between motivation and depression.
Yeah, I think for us, we will start. I mean, we were waiting for this meeting for a very long time. I mean, as I said, you were always there, like we were always talking to you.
This is the first time.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to see what you do. I think you will, hopefully with this new lease of freedom around it all, I think you're going to do some colourful things. some colourful things.
Yes. Really, thank you so much.
And some surprising things. Thank you guys. And best of luck. I really wish you best luck. I look forward to see what you're doing, but no pressure, of course.
Goodbye.
See you guys. Bye-bye. See you.